The tragic passing of the Gaudreau brothers has had a big impact on Boston College. We're going to be joined by AJ Black of Locked On BC to talk about that and a lot more coming up on today's Locked On NHL podcast.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Gil Martin here, and welcome everybody to the Monday edition of the Locked On NHL podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On NHL your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. It is my pleasure to welcome into the show AJ Black of Locked On BC. I wish it were under better circumstances, but AJ, the Gaudreau brothers tragically passing away after being involved in an accident. They were on bicycles. The driver of the car that hit them Friday night was allegedly under the influence. What impact does the passing of the Gaudreau brothers, who both played hockey at BC, have on the community?
It's devastating for Boston College fans. Johnny Gaudreau was, and Matt Gaudreau too, were pillars of this program. Johnny won the national title for Boston College in 2012, coming completely out of nowhere. This was a kid that was a Northeastern decommit. He and his brother were heading to the Huskies. They both end up at Boston College. His first year was magical. I've never seen a hockey player play the way that I saw Johnny Gaudreau play. And the season that he had, he wins the Hobey Baker in 2012, wins the national title against Ferris State, and he basically gets the game winner. Ferris was coming back in that game, and they were putting the pressure on Johnny Gaudreau, just like every game he ever played at Boston College. No pressure on him at all. This guy was cold as ice when he was out there, and the smoothest player I've ever seen. Goes out there and wins it for Boston College. He was beloved on campus. Everyone had Johnny hockey shirts in the student section. To have his brother come with him, I can't even, I can't imagine. Like right now, it's fun to talk about hockey, to think back of all that positive, but I just can't imagine what that family's going through right now. And my thoughts are so much with that family and the friends of him, because it's this is so senseless and it's a tough spot for everybody. And I feel so much for his family right now. It's both of their families, Maddie and Johnny.
Yeah. I mean, right on the eve of their sister's wedding, Matthew's wife expecting a child, and it's just so horrible. And they were just so young, and it's very difficult to talk about. Are there any moments that stand out in your mind about his time in BC and that just stand out in your mind?
Yeah, I mean, just the way he came onto the scene at BC. They had a early season tournament, and they were playing North Dakota, who was a national powerhouse in hockey, and they were predicted to win that tournament, North Dakota. And Johnny Gaudreau, in his first, I think it was his first 2 or 3 games, he scores 4 goals in this tournament and beats North Dakota 6-2. And after that moment, you never knew what he would bring. Every game was it was like watching a magician out there. This is this kid. He's 5'9", and that's being generous. He was a small dude, and he could do things that you never saw before out of a hockey player. And I'm not just saying that to be, over the top, but he really was. He was a magician out there, the way he could move the puck, the way that he could get around guys. And the stories that you hear about him off campus were even better. There's BC fans out there today. They're like, yeah, Johnny Gaudreau came to my son's baseball game because we invited him to. There's other ones that are like, we saw him on campus and he couldn't have been nicer. That was what Johnny Gaudreau is. So this isn't just about losing a hockey player. This is about losing a great man. This is about two great men, because Matty Gaudreau is as good as Johnny Gaudreau everywhere he was. And the impact that he had around the community was as big as Johnny. Like Johnny's the name everyone talks about, but like Matty should be talked about too, because, he didn't have the hockey career, but he was a great person too. And it's again, like the hockey part is so important, because Johnny was, this figure. Like, it's funny because it's not funny, but like BC, that's our thing. Like we got shorter guys like Doug Flutie, you got Johnny Gaudreau. Those are our goats right there in terms of hockey and football. And they're both 5'9" plus, but Johnny Gaudreau, his impact on the school, the way that, he wins the Hobie Baker, I can remember the band started to play Johnny Be Good every time he'd get out there. And just, the stands were packed every game for him, because you never knew when he was going to go to the NHL. You took every game that Johnny Gaudreau played at Boston College as his last game, and you appreciated every moment that he was out there. Because he played out there with some, with Kevin Hayes and Bill Arnold, who were both good players, and, Thatcher Demko. There's future NHL guys, but everyone, you watched it and you watched Johnny, and every time he touched that puck, you glued yourself to the TV and goes, what is he going to do next? And I think the best part of it all is every Boston College fan, everyone who followed that program, you knew when he got to the NHL, people were not going to take him as they wouldn't respect him like they would with Kevin Hayes, who was like 6'7" or whatever. He was huge, right? But we knew that once he got there, it didn't matter his size. He was going to be awesome. And that was exactly what we saw. He gets to Calgary and he immediately turns into the player in the NHL that we saw in college. And we're like, see, this kid's special. And he was special. And every moment that he had in the NHL, I'm a Bruins guy. I'm from Boston, obviously. You can hear it in my voice. But to watch, I would turn on the Flames anytime I could just to watch Johnny Gaudreau. And I loved it. And I think he only got 31 years on this earth, but it was a joy. It was a pleasure just to experience what he brought to the rink and outside the rink.
Any tributes planned, or is it too soon right now to know what the program is going to do?
I haven't heard anything. Greg Brown, the new head coach, he and Jerry York. Jerry York was Johnny Gaudreau's coach. Both had spoken about the loss, but I haven't heard anything yet. My hope is both of their numbers get retired, Matty and Johnny, because they do. Like they were Boston College. They were, the heart and soul of this program for a long time. Their families were integral to the school. They won a national title. Like, put their numbers in the rafters so we can all look at them and talk about what the Gaudreaus meant to BC and how special they were to the community, because they were. That's what they were.
AJ, I want to thank you for doing this. Why don't you tell our viewers and our listeners where they could find your podcast and where they could find you on social media?
Yeah, thank you, Gil. I'm on Locked On Boston College. We'll be talking about Gaudreau, and we'll talk about the Florida State game coming up for football, but I got to talk more about Johnny on our show on Locked On BC. You can follow us on YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. You can follow my work at AJ Black 247, and I'm the editor of Eagle Insider, part of the 247 network. You can see my written work, and we have a great tribute up right now on Eagle Insider to the Gaudreaus from my writer, who was one of the equipment managers when he was there and knew them both really well. So I hope you guys can go check that out. It's totally free. You can go check it out now.
AJ, thank you so much, and I wish that we were doing this under better circumstances.
Me too, Gil. Have a good one.
You too. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we have something a little different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. So if your favorite team plays outside of your hometown, or you want to keep track of all the players on your fantasy league, or if you're just a huge football fan, this is the offer for you. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. FanDuel.com, download America's #1 sportsbook.